Nothing on the day should be new, and why your sessions at home are too clean, and what happens when you deliberately make them messier. I want you to think about the last time something went wrong at a show. Have you got it? Maybe not a bad round, something administrative. The class ran 90 minutes early or 90 minutes late. He pulled a shoe in the truck, your number went missing, the warm-up ring was chaos, you got one fence, somebody's vest went off next to you. And think about what happened to you in the 20 minutes after. Because I'd bet money that the round that followed was not your best work. And I'd almost bet that in your head, it went down as evidence about you rather than evidence about your preparation. I'm Britt. I'm an equestrian performance coach. And today I'm going to be making an argument that your riding at home is too nice. Here's a pattern that I see constantly, and it's completely well-intentioned. A rider is nervous about competing. So they make home a sanctuary, quiet arena, ride at the same time, same order of exercises, nobody's watching, the phone's off, the dog shut away, same warm-up every routine, because that's what works, right? And it does work. At home, she rides beautifully at home, and everybody tells her so, right? And then she takes that horse to a venue with a PA system, a food van, 4 rings running, a warm-up, 16 horses in it, a schedule that moves, and a start time that changes. And her body says, I've never been here before. None of this is familiar. I have no data for this, although I strongly suspect that's probably how every competition looks, right? Someone that I was working with was telling me that a simple, like kind of something, they get really frazzled by when something happens with the float and towing. And it kind of all just starts from there. And then when we worked together, we actually set down a written timeline of getting ready, leaving for the comp, as we mentioned a couple of episodes ago. And what happened was that something went wrong, but they had a timeline, and they looked at the clock and they looked at their timeline and they're like, cool, I'm still ahead of time. It's okay. I don't need to worry. I've planned for a little bit of contingency in this, right? Now, thinking about what we've actually just done here, right, is we've built a skill in one very narrow set of conditions and then asked them to produce it in a completely different set. And that's not a mental toughness gap. That's a transfer gap. And it's a training design problem, not a character problem. So here's the principle underneath it. And it's from motor learning, not from mindset work. Skill is not stored as pure movement. Skill is stored bound up with the conditions it was learnt in. If you always learn in it, quiet, still, predictable, unhurried, then quiet, still, predictable, and unhurried becomes a part of the recipe. Take those away and you've not got the same skill set anymore. You've got a version of it running on unfamiliar ground, which is why the fix is not more repetitions. It's more varied repetitions. There was this time that I went to one of my first eventing competitions and someone had said to me, just be careful. There's the race car track at Warwick and there's the shooting range, right? And I was like, okay. Don't know if my horse has ever had cars or a shooting range. And then what happened? Well, what I did was shit myself, right? And my whole entire dressage test said, relax, relax, breathe, breathe, breathe. Is that relaxation is like the second thing on the dressage pyramid, right? So I don't know. Go figure. What I could have done realistically is 2 things. Is I could have, maybe played some soundtracks. Well, I'm actually thinking about going back to work in a couple of weeks and still need to do that. Played some soundtracks for some constraint-led training. And what I should have done is I should have recognized that, realized that one piece of information was going to fuel into a problem and how it was going to show up at the competition. And then I should have adjusted my warm-up for it. Instead of warming up where I thought I was, I should have warmed them up closer to the cars so that it wasn't a surprise when we went into the ring. And I know I started this and said it shouldn't be a surprise on the competition day, but sometimes when the unexpected happens, it's about that level of adaptability and changing our plan and the flexibility to then be able to say, well, this was my plan. This is the current information. What decision do I need to make with the current information that I've got? I'm going to change where I'm going to warm up, right? So let me talk about what harder actually means, because I want to be careful here. And I'm absolutely not telling you to go and frighten your horse. There are 2 categories of pressure and they are not the same thing. The first is environmental noise, things happening around you. Someone else riding in the arena, music on, a gate banging, wind, riding at home on a day that you never ride, a riding jacket, riding somewhere entirely new, a friend standing watching at the fence. The last one is far more powerful than people expect. There's someone watching one if you have it. Riders often collapse under an audience. The second is task pressure, constraints on what you have to do. One attempt only, no do-overs. A time limit, a course you've never seen, walked once, ridden immediately, have to nominate it out loud where you're going to ride. The second category is where real work is, because it recreates the exact thing in a competition does to you. It removes your ability to fix it afterwards, right? Because that's what actually changes at the show when you strip it back. At home, if the first attempt is scrappy, you go again. At a show, you don't. Your body knows that a huge amount of what you experience at the gate is your system responding to irreversibility. So you can train irreversibility at home on a Tuesday for free. Now, the piece I want you to take away today, everything I've just described is about the round, but the majority of what falls over at a show falls over before the round. The schedule changes, the shoe goes, the bridle breaks, the float has a flat, your groom doesn't turn up, your trainer is stuck in another ring, the class you'd planned to school in gets cancelled. And here's what I noticed about riders in that moment. It's not that they can't solve the problem. They're capable people. They always solve the problem. It's that solving it costs them. It burns 20 minutes of nervous system capacity that they needed for the round. They arrive at the gate already spent, and then they blame the round. The fix is embarrassingly simple in a concept, and almost nobody does it. You decide in advance before you leave home what you will do when things go wrong, not vaguely, specifically written down. What do I do when the class runs 2 hours early? What do I do if he pulls a shoe? What does a shortened warm-up look like if I only get 8 minutes? What's my plan if my person isn't there? That's it. That's the concept. You are pre-deciding while you are calm the things you'd otherwise have to decide while you're not. Because here's the physiology of it. Decision-making is one of the first things to degrade when your system is loaded. It's expensive and it's early to go. So the worst possible time to make a decision is the moment you're forced to. Making it on Thursday at the kitchen table costs almost nothing. Making it on Sunday in the truck pass costs you the round. The story that I explained before of something happening with a horse float and having a pre-written plan wasn't quite a pre-written plan of something had happened to the float, but we had a pre-written plan of what order and when we were going to do things, and we built in contingencies to that plan. So what happens is that our brain doesn't need to waste energy that it needs for the ring to be adaptable and make decisions. We've already built something that when your brain needs to go offline for a little bit, we've got something to rely on. And I'll be honest with you about the limits of what I've just given you, because I don't like content that pretends a concept is a solution, right? Knowing you should build pressure into training is not the same as knowing how. There's a real craft to it, and there's 2 ways to get it wrong. Get it wrong in one direction and you're under load. It stays comfortable, nothing transfers, and you've wasted a season. Get it wrong in the other direction and you're overloaded. You throw too much at a horse who wasn't ready, or at yourself, and you don't build tolerance. You build a bad memory, and now you've made things worse. And horses are very good at remembering, right? We all know that. We've been there. The difference between these two in progression, and progression has to be built for a specific horse and a specific rider, starting from an honest picture of where they are both actually are at. That's the piece I do with people. The principle you can have today, and I want you to have it. But start here. This week, change one thing, just one. Ride at a different time. Ride with music on. Ride one exercise on one attempt only with no do-over. Ride your test backwards in the ring and notice what your body does with it. That noticing is the actual training. If you take one line from this episode, take this one. Your nervous system is not asking to be protected from pressure. It's asking to have already met it. Every unfamiliar thing at a show is a thing your system has to process live using capacity you need for riding. Every familiar thing is free. So the work is to keep converting the unfamiliar into familiar on purpose at home where it is safe to be scrappy and messy. If you want help working out where specific gaps are and what to load first, that's exactly the sort of thing we can map out in our performance audit. I'll ask you about your last 3 shows in a fair bit of detail, and it usually becomes quite obvious quite quickly. The link's in the show notes. Go and make one session messier this week. He'll be fine, and so will you.